Now that you are familiar with what a solution is and some of the various files that you would find inside of a solution, and we've looked at our console app type of project, let's look at the solutions for some of the other types of projects that you could create in Visual Studio. So let's come to New Project, and let's go to Windows Desktop and Class Library. A class library is the type of project you would create if you wanted to create a DLL file, which is a dynamic linked library. In these types of projects, we only create class objects that can then be referenced inside of other applications. So go ahead and click Class Library and give it a name. I'm going to name this Lesson Class Library and click OK. Once Visual Studio creates the project, and if you get any extra windows, go ahead and click Cancel, we can look at our Solution Explorer and see what goes on inside of a class library. So we can see that our solution, same as the last project, is named what we named our project, which was Lesson Class Library, which is also the same name as the project file that's inside of that solution. We have a similar properties section and references section, but there's no actual program. There's only classes. So by default, we get this class1.cs, which is the file that Visual Studio automatically opens for us. We have similar using statements to our console application. Once again, we have a namespace that matches our project name, and we can see we have a public class named class1. So since a dynamic linked library or a class library only contains class files, that's the only type of file that you're going to be able to put inside of this kind of solution. So in here, we could have as many classes as we want. We can name them everything we need to name them. And then these would be classes that are created simply for the use of other applications. So if you had a bunch of applications in your organization that all needed to share a basic set of class objects, you could create a class library project and create that one set of class objects that then all of these applications would share. So let's look at how to create another file inside of our Solution Explorer. So if I wanted to create a second class in my class library, I would come up here and right-click on the project, and I would go down to Add, and you can see I have a couple of different options. I can add a new item, which is going to bring up the wizard that gives me different components I can add. I can add an existing item. So if I already have a class built previously that I want to import into this project, I can use this option. I could import a reference. So maybe I have a reference from a third party, maybe API, or I've downloaded a reference file, or I have a web service, and that's a connection to an outside website, and I want to access that web service. So if we click New Item, we can see that the wizard gives us a bunch of different options for items that we can add into this type of project. So we can see we get a class, an interface, forms, user controls, right? All different types of items that we could create. And once you click one of these, you give it a name down here at the bottom. I'm just going to leave it class 2 and click Add. It adds it to our solution and then opens it over here as a separate tab so that we could switch between the two and make edits to the code. So that's essentially the basics for a class library project. We have a couple of video lessons that look at various types of projects that you'll be working on in this C# course or that you need to become familiar with. So check out the other videos on how to create some other different types of projects so that you get an idea of what those differences are.